So now we're going to work on finding a comfortable seat. So the word asana, which as we start to learn more about the yoga practice and the different yoga poses or postures, if you will, you'll start to hear this word asana in a lot of the poses because it's the root word of Tadasana, Shavasana, Adho Mukha Svanasana. So we've got this root word asana in all of these Sanskrit pose names. So the word asana actually means to take a comfortable seat. A lot of times this word is translated as pose or posture, which are also very valid meanings. But at its core, it means to take a comfortable seat. So today, right now, we are going to work on practicing an actual comfortable seat, sitting on the floor. But it's a great foundation. So once we find this comfortable seat and we understand, our body understands what comfortable seat means, we can start to understand how can we take a comfortable seat in other maybe more challenging or more fancier poses. So it's good to practice just taking a comfortable seat in its most basic form. But additionally, why might we want to have a comfortable seat? So I think that personally the main reason is for when we're doing seated practices. So when we're seated in meditation or we're doing other breathing, energetic practices or hand practices, mudras, which again we'll learn about all of these things later. So we'll be doing these seated practices. And some people may argue that the only reason that we do the fancy physical practice of these different asanas is so that we're able to sit comfortably for an extended period of time in meditation or with these other energetic practices, what have you. So throughout this beginner's course, and then for the continuation of your yoga practice, you'll continue to refine what this comfortable seat means to you. So what I'd like us to work on, first of all, is finding right now, because each day is different, or maybe in 2 weeks I may have an injury or I have some extra tension or something going on. So my comfortable seat might be different day by day. So what we want to do is practice what are some variations of this comfortable seat, and we want to get our body used to sitting in its comfortable seat, whatever it may be. So you'll see here, I am sitting in, this is my most comfortable seat. I am sitting on a bolster, which you could always substitute with some pillows or a couple of blankets. I'm sitting on a bolster, so my sitting bones and my pelvis is raised and my knees are down, and then I personally have one foot crossed on top of the other. This is just my natural, comfortable seat. I can typically sit like this for 5 to sometimes 20 plus minutes, no problem. My spine is nice and long, so it's important to have the spine upright, nice and long, so we have a clear central energy channel. We want our shoulders aligned over our hips, so we don't want to be kind of slouching to one side or the other. We don't want to be slouching forward or arching back. And comfortable seat doesn't mean I'm at stiff military attention. The most important piece of our comfortable seat is that we can feel our sitting bones grounding down either into the floor or our mat, whatever we're sitting on, whether it be a bolster or a block. So we feel our sitting bones grounding down, and we feel the spine lengthening up. So we have our natural curve in our spine. Like I said, I'm not slouching in any direction. So I have this clear energy channel, and so that I can just sit comfortably for a while. You'll notice if you're not used to sitting on the, let's just say on the ground, we can always practice meditation and anything. We can always practice it in a chair. But the goal here is to practice sitting on the ground right now if we can do this. So you'll notice that the more you practice it, the easier it gets. And at first you may not be able to sit in stillness for very long. It may only be a minute or two, and then a foot starts to fall asleep or something happens. And this is what's so important about this comfortable seat, is we want to find a place to as best as we can where nothing does fall asleep. Because when it does, or where nothing is painful, or my knee doesn't hurt, or my shoulder is tense, or my neck hurts, because once I start to feel any of those things happening in my body, then I'm distracted and I've lost my focus on whatever it was that I was working on, whether it was meditation, breathing, some sort of energetic practice. Then the focus becomes on the body being uncomfortable and not on the practice at hand. And then we've kind of lost it, and then we have to readjust and perhaps start all over. So it is important, and you'll see why the more you practice, to see what this comfortable seat is for you. So like I said, we typically want to have our shoulders aligned over our hips, and we want the spine to be nice and long. The hands can typically rest, they might rest on the knees or on the thighs or in the lap somewhere. We want to be able to breathe comfortably in this seat, and like I said, we want to be able to sit here and be still without movement. However, if you are in a class or in a practice and you do find that the seat you have chosen has become uncomfortable, it's always a good idea to make a subtle adjustment, or even a large adjustment if you need to. We don't want to be constantly wiggling around, but it's better to, if my leg starts to fall asleep, it's better to just pause and extend my leg out and finish my practice that way than suffer through. I'm just causing myself more suffering, right? If I suffer with my foot falling asleep, and then, how long is it going to take for that to go away? So it's like, as you'll learn the more we practice, there's always yes, and if this, then that. So there's always a variety of ways. So it's like, yes, find this comfortable seat, stay in stillness, but if you need to, you want to move so you don't cause yourself extra suffering. So we've seen my comfortable seat, and I've talked about that. But at the most basic, so if I was just sitting on my mat, a great way to start is just by crisscrossing the legs, right? Like when we're teaching our kids, crisscross applesauce. So you may just crisscross the legs, and that might feel really good to you. You may like to have one leg on top of the other. Depending on how open your hips naturally happen to be, or if you're used to sitting for a while. So some people like one foot on top of the other. Some people like legs crossed. So those are great places to start. For a more detailed version, if you can figure out some sort of legs crossed version, they say that this is a great way to relax the rest of the motor organs. So that's why you see, if you see these kind of pictures and statues of traditional yogis practicing or meditating, they're always in some sort of a cross-legged position. And that's the reason. So it relaxes the rest of the motor organs, in addition to having this long spine, and can be, with practice, it can be a great way to sit for an extended period of time. So let's say I've chosen a cross-legged position, but it feels like my knees they're really high. I could either, like I said, sit on a bolster or some blankets to get my hips up a little higher, or you could, let's say, take a prop or some blocks or something and go ahead and rest your knees on those blocks. So you might like that. Sometimes this causes a little extra tension in the hips, but supporting with blocks could be an option for you. Another option, if just the knees open doesn't really work for you, another option could be to sit back on your heels. Now, maybe you don't sit comfortably straight on your heels, and you might need a little lift. So again, that's where we can take our props. We can take a block or two. I like to take my block sideways and find a place where I'm having my sitting bones pressing down nice and strong. And then you can see I have a nice long spine. I can rest my hands comfortably on my thighs, and I'm sitting here, I'm in my comfortable seat. So this could be a nice option until maybe you practice more and the hips are a little bit more open. And you can always add more blocks, get yourself a little bit higher if there's pressure in the knees. You can always have a blanket under the knees. So those are a couple of the first main options. And another one too could be you sit with the soles of the feet placed together and the knees opened up out to the side. So this is a butterfly pose. So this just might be a little bit more comfortable for you to sit. Again, the main thing is we want our sitting bones rooting down. We want the spine lengthening up. Excuse me. So for me, I'm fine in this butterfly pose if I'm a little bit more active or I'm moving around. But for meditation, if I just try and sit here comfortably, my lower back wants to start to curl and wants to start to slouch. So the only way for me, if I wanted to sit there and choose that butterfly as my meditative pose, is I would definitely need to be on a cushion. And then if I come up here, now I've got this lift, my knees are a little bit lower. Now I can sit here comfortably for a little bit longer. So comfortable seat, you will want to practice this on your own so that when you come to class or when you are practicing at home, typically we begin class maybe with an opening meditation and we close class with an opening meditation. So the more you practice this comfortable seat on your own, you'll be able to come right to your spot, know what your seat is for these times of meditation, and perhaps in the future if you get into some deeper meditation or energetic practices. So the homework for this little segment is finding your comfortable seat. So I encourage you to play around with the different options I've shown. Gather different props that you might have around the house. If you don't have a bolster, which many people don't, you can use some sort of other pillow or couch cushion or something. You can use some blankets or your blocks. So find what your comfortable seat is. And a good test is to set a timer on your phone or whatever and just sit still for 5 minutes. So your homework, and what I would say is practice this maybe every day for about a week until and try different things out and set a timer for 5 minutes and figure out which is the best way for my body, which is the best way for me to sit comfortably for 5 minutes. And again, this may change over time, right? Right now, you may be the sitting on the heels version and eventually maybe the cross-legged person. So set your timer for 5 minutes, practice different variations, and while you're sitting there for 5 minutes, do your best to just find stillness and maybe pay attention to your breath and scan the body or listen to some relaxing music or something like that. So just see if you can find a way to be comfortable in a seat on the floor for 5 minutes. Set that timer, do the homework. And then as always, if you have any questions, go ahead and send them to me and we can definitely work that out.